hello. Welcome to Let's Talk Power Live, our summer power chat series. You know, summer is a time when educators, most of them anyway, are out of the building and they get a time and they get a chance to reflect, to relax, and also to think ahead to the coming year. We often have a conversation about students having a summer slide, and we always push and admonish families, make sure your kid's still learning, make sure your kid's still learning over the summer. The heart of our summer power chat series is all about making sure the adults also keep their summer learning on par. We know that people are going to leave town, they're going to do a bunch of things. We wanted to make our summer power chat series something educators would love and come back to. So what did we do? We did one education author, one book, and one big idea. And for this summer power chat discussion, I'm excited to bring to you a wonderful mathematical mind. Before I do that, you probably want to know who I am. Who am I? I'm Dr. Tangi Reed Marshall. I am your host. I'm also the founder and CEO of Liaison Educational Partners, where we are in the business of partnering with educators of every level with a particular lens toward middle school. We know it's a messy place, and our job is to make it less messy. So for this week, for this episode of our Summer Power Chat, I'm excited to bring to you Dr. Pamela Seda. She is the founder and CEO of Seda Educational Consulting and co-author of Choosing to See, a framework for equity in the math classroom, a former high school mathematics teacher, instructional coach, district mathematics leader, college instructor, and national speaker. Dr. Seda brings more than 30 years of experience supporting educators in strengthening mathematics teaching through equity, student empowerment, and the ICU CARE framework. So let's go ahead and welcome Dr. Pam Seda to Let's Talk Power Live, our summer power chat series. Hey, Dr. Pam.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, let's go ahead and dig right in. As you think about the book, right, I want you to talk to us. One, who did you write this book for when you sat down and said, you know what, it's time for pen to paper? Who did you write it for?
Yeah, I wrote this book for teachers who know that they're not meeting the needs of their students, that they really have a desire. I've seen teachers all the time like, this is hard work. People who've never taught math don't really know how hard it is, especially high school math, right? A higher level math. And I wrote it to that teacher who knows how hard the work is and really wanted to do better. But just like there are so many students who I'm not meeting their needs, especially Black and Brown students, special ed students, students who are English language learners, and I want to know how to do better. Those are the teachers I wrote to. I also understood that 80% of our teaching force are white females. And oftentimes they are put in front of students who do not look like them. And I wrote that book for them as well, understanding that if 80% of the teaching force are white females, then I have to figure out how can I arm them who want to do this work to do better by our children.
Let's go back. Let's think about that 80%. What did you hope your book would help them see or understand or do differently?
Yeah, so the book was called Choosing to See very strategically, and I wanted them to be able to see and understand that the problem is bigger than them. I wanted them to be able to understand the problem. One of the things I know as a mathematician in solving problems, the very first step is understanding the problem. And so
Always.
many times in our current instructional systems, we put everything on the teacher. We blame everything on the teacher. And so we internalize that and think that everything is our fault. And I wanted them to be able to understand the problem systemically, historically. So I gave that theory to help them understand we're here and students are responding the way that they are because of the history of our system. Second thing I wanted them to be able to see is I needed them to be able to see inequity in the schools because equity had become a buzzword and everybody was championing equity. Equity, can't say that anymore. But at the time
We
that the
can
book
say
was
it
written,
here.
I
We can
was
say
writing the
it
book.
here.
I think equity was one of those terms everyone had jumped on the bandwagon about, and everybody was for equity, but people didn't recognize inequity when they saw it.
Right.
And I wanted to make it plain. I wanted to create a clear picture of what does inequity look like? What are the consequences for our students for that inequity? And then what to do about it. It wasn't just a call to action. It wasn't just, oh, we need to fix equity. I wanted them to not just feel guilty about the fact that there's these inequities or feel bad about the inequities. I wanted to empower them to say, here are some ways to think about how do we implement equity in a math classroom. And here's a plethora of instructional strategies on how to do it. But I was very strategic because I didn't want them to just try strategies. I wanted them to be able to think about the
Mhm.
problem and understand it so that they could be strategic about how they implement the strategies so that it works for all kids.
That's important. Strategic implementation of a strategy, because we know in education, we are very good at give me the strategy, give me the strategy, tell me what to do tomorrow. And we think it's just a plug and play. Take it out of this socket and put it in that socket, and the light bulb's still going to go on. It doesn't work that way. And I'm glad that you said you really wanted them to be strategic about the implementation of processes so that students will learn how to do the things they need to do in math. Let's talk about tensions. As you go about your work in this and the book itself, I'm going to get to your ICU CARE framework in a moment. What was the tension you were really trying to address? And you might have alluded to it when you said 80% of the teaching force is mainly white women. Was there a particular tension you were trying to get at as you put the work together for the book?
Yeah, I think the major tension is the fact that we recognize many of our Black and Brown children are not doing well in mathematics. The other tension is many people, in response to Black and Brown children not doing well, lowered the bar and said, "Oh, I'm gonna feel sorry for you, so I'm gonna lower the bar, and I'm not gonna expect as much out of you, so you can feel successful." And that
Mm.
tension was that we felt like we had to lower the bar, lower the expectation, so that kids could feel successful, then eventually somehow get them to the bar.
And they never get
And
there.
I
You
wanted
can't get there. You can't get
Right,
there.
and I wanted to be very clear, being the math teacher that I was equity is not lowering the bar at all.
Right,
It's removing the barriers.
right.
And there's a
Mm.
difference that unfortunately, because math has been used as a gatekeeper to sort kids, we've put these artificial barriers unnecessarily in front of kids and then blame them when they don't meet the bar. And so that was the tension I was trying to address. There's a history for why there's this lack of success. There's a reason
Mhm.
behind it. I need you to understand that reasoning. But that's not an excuse. I'm trying to show you here are some ways and here are some things to think about it so that we maintain that high bar, but we remove the barriers so that all kids can get over it. And
Got
one
it.
of the major barriers that I saw was just connecting to prior knowledge and connecting to the cultural funds of knowledge that students bring with them. That was one of the main barriers that I saw. So that's my chapter 4, use culturally
Mhm.
relevant curricula so that we can bring those cultural reference to bear to even teach mathematics, which is not cultural neutral.
It's not right because nothing is culturally neutral. So we
Exactly.
can go on the record and say nothing is culturally neutral, particularly when we think about the ways in which people approach any subject matter. Right, I'm going to approach mathematics through my lens of how I live my life. I'm going to approach my reading practice in the same way,
Absolutely.
right? So my nothing is culturally neutral, and I'm glad that you said that out loud. What is one assumption your framework? Let's get into your framework right now, the ICU CARE framework. one, I want to ask you to tell us what it all stands for. But then, what is one assumption your framework is challenging adults to disrupt?
Okay. So ICU CARE is an acronym for 7 principles that came out of my doctoral work, what I called equity pedagogy. And those 7 principles were based in the multicultural teacher education literature that said these should be the principles that every multicultural teacher education program should have. I used it because I saw someone apply those principles to an ELA class. Actually, it was a middle school ELA class. And so I said, well, I'm going to take that same framework and I'm going to operationalize it for a math classroom. And so what each of those principles are, I is include others as experts, C is be critically conscious, U is understand your students well, the second C is use culturally relevant curricula, A is assess, activate, build on prior knowledge, R is release control, and E is expect more. And what's important, even though you can't, as a teacher, focus on all 7 of them at one time, it is important to understand that all 7 pieces must work together for us to solve the problem of low achievement for marginalized kids. That all 7 of those pieces are important. But the thing that I want to, the major reason that I develop or want teachers to implement this framework, or what did you say, the deficit?
Assumption. Yeah, what
The
assumptions
assumption.
you want them to
Yes.
disrupt? Yes.
The assumption that I wanted to disrupt is that kids who cannot answer quickly or efficiently without confusion are somehow less smart and less capable than those who can. That is such a deficit and harmful assumption that people make, that if kids can't get the answer quickly, that they're not smart. The other assumption is because kids avoid doing math or appear to be lazy, that they don't want to learn. And so I challenge all of that in the book. I talk about the avoidance behaviors and where that comes from and why it's a rational response to the system of sorting that has communicated to kids over and over and over again that you're not smart. So when that gets communicated over and over again, it's a rational response to, okay,
Right,
well,
it
then I'm
is.
going to avoid it. And
Right.
so that you don't think that I'm not smart.
Right, exactly. They're going to just not even want to be bothered. And we see all that in the classrooms. Let's take this question, the next one. And the question here is about, if your educators who read this book take one thing that's going to make them do their work better, what would it be? What is one thing from your book that you said, you know what, make sure you do this and it'll help you do it better?
Well, I think you're going to love what I'm going to say. If people have often asked me, where do you start? And I say, include others as experts, because that's where you share your power. It's share your power. If you understand that your job as a math teacher is not to open their brains and pour into it all this great knowledge you have.
You have, right. Your great math knowledge.
Right? If you understand that your job is to create a community of learners where every student can be an expert, because you redefine expertise as anyone who can contribute to the collective knowledge of the group. And that collectively you learn to reason and analyze and work through confusion. If you see that as your job, that will change and transform the experiences of your students.
I love it. That one thing, share your power, which brings us to our last question. I can't believe it's gone so quickly. You already said, I would love that question, your response, because the work I do, which you know, centers power. And you've already alluded to it. We know that every decision in education is a power decision. Somebody is making a decision based upon their authority to do so, which affects a child. In your book, how do you address the idea of the power? And you already talked about it, so keep going. How do you look at this idea of power sharing more specifically as a way to increase access to the equitable excellent math education that kids deserve?
Yeah, so I think of the word empower,
Mm,
and the reason that I came across that word and loved it in doing the equity work was because in all my research, my PhD was in math education, and I came in it with the lens of wanting to address the quote unquote achievement gap. Like that was why I started. I wanted answers. It wasn't acceptable to me that this gap existed. So in a lot of the work, I still saw a real deficit lens of, well, we got to fix these kids. Then it went to, we got to fix the families that they come from. Or I saw this Messiah complex. Like we got to come
mm,
in and educate kids and teach them A, B, C, and D so that we can rescue them from their communities or from their lives. Still
right.
very much deficit thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came across this word empower because, like, even when I'm thinking about critical consciousness, and that's that awareness, right? You have to be aware of how stereotypes are operating in your classroom.
Right.
And it's not about, I'm not becoming aware so I can save them. I'm becoming aware so I can empower them
Mm,
to overcome the stereotypes. And so that's where power comes in. It's like I'm using my power to empower you. So I have to recognize I have power. I have absolute power. It's not about just turning everything over to the kids. It's
no,
not
it's
that at
not.
all. I
It's
have
not.
power that they don't have. I
Mm-hmm.
need
You
to
do.
recognize that.
That's right. You do.
But I use that power intentionally to empower them. So, what are some ways that I have done that? One is I have a PhD in mathematics, math education. So people perceive that, oh, you're really smart. So I purposely tell people, I don't know this answer. Like, I don't know the answer to this question. I
Right.
purposely model that it's okay to make mistakes. I purposely tell my students, I need you to point out my mistakes when I make a mistake and kind of get upset with them when I make a mistake and they don't point it out. Right? That is me using my power to say, I have a PhD in math education and I still don't know everything about math.
Exactly right. I love that. That's it. That one idea that you have power. And if you want there to be inclusion, you have to make a conscious effort to make it happen because it creates and necessitates the need for you to recognize you've got it. And two, that you've got to be willing to give it over to someone else.
And share it, right? I'm not
And
giving it up, but
no,
I'm
no,
sharing it,
right. We're in this
right?
together. Because there
Exactly.
has to be
That's the community,
boundaries. There has to be safety. And the
right?
misnomer is if I'm sharing it with somebody else and I've got less of it, you don't have less of it.
No,
It's a
absolutely
redistribution
not.
of it. It's a redistribution of it. Well, my friend, that is our power chat for today. We see that you care. We thank you for your work. And folks, if you want to get a copy of Dr. Pam's book, please go ahead and get it. She is available. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it through her website, Seda Educational Consulting, and she will be happy to send it to you. And that
I'll
is what,
autograph copy of that. If you
oh,
get it from pamseda.com, I will autograph it.
PamelaSeda.com, you'll get an autographed copy. I actually have my autographed copy right here. And so lovely. Thank you for your time, your brilliance, and I appreciate it. That's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed our session with Dr. Pam Seda, and we'll see you next time for another Let's Talk Power Live Summer Power Chat.